Oh, it's connecting right now. We are recording, guys. Welcome to the second roundtable of 2024. Today's topic is on AI and ethics in sales and marketing, and I believe it's been quite an interesting topic that has come about based on the last conversation. We spoke about all things AI in business development, and a lot of concerns came up around compliance, regulatory concerns, and also the ethics behind using data in your outbound motion. So to kick it off in a very, very fast way, you guys got 20 to 25 seconds for short snapshot intros. Please introduce yourself, where you're from, and how you're going to contribute to this this discussion. Let's start with Tony, Eric, Martin, Chris, Marianne, Martin, Ewing, and then Peter.
Great. Good morning. My name is Tony Dix. I'm the CRO of Cloud Task Marketplace, where we help companies connect with talent, primarily in LATAM and third world countries, where they can achieve an economic benefit.
Awesome.
Thank you. I'm Eric. I work with a small consulting company called Dr. Lisa AI. We specialize in helping sales and marketing leaders select, use, and implement AI in their operations.
Nice. I'm Martin. I'm Martin from Mega AI, the co-founder of Mega AI, and we are building the next AI robots for meeting booking. That's based out of Denmark, and with an American entity also in Dover, and together here with Peter. Nice to see you all.
Chris?
Yeah, I'll be next. Chris Beal, CEO of Connect and Sell. The last 17 years, we've been letting sales reps push a button and talk to somebody, whether they speak ethically or not, is their own business.
Marianne.
I'm Marianne Vanilla. I am CEO of the Vanilla Group, which I've had for 2 decades. And we work with enterprise tech companies and identify active and developing sales cycles for them and profile those and make sure the client engages and participates. And then we also manage that process as well.
And hello, everybody. Marcin Kirdelevich here. I'm the CEO of Biami. So what we do is, we build business process automation at scale. And yes, we build systems with AI and also for sales and marketing as well, of course. So great to see everybody.
Ewing.
Hey, Ewing Gillespie, founder and CEO of Pitch Black. We take over founder and chief title accounts and do all of the business development, ranging from partnerships to direct and refactoring plays for them as a service. So they get all of the flow out of their accounts that they don't have time to do for themselves and maybe don't trust their SDR to do on their behalf. So we're an extension of the founder digitally up and down the different plays and inbound, outbound, et cetera.
And finally, Mr. Peter.
Thank you so much. So hello, everybody. I'm Peter from Mega, together with Martin, and I'm the CEO. And as Martin said, we're working with automated meeting booking, where we use conversational AI, synthetic speech, and automated workflows. So
Awesome,
greetings from Denmark.
Awesome, and I'm Shane. I'm sure everybody knows me. I'm the Chief Partnerships Officer at Mega and CEO of a company called Sales Driven, and I'm here to really drive a good conversation, a good debate, maybe some back and forth so that we can all learn more and network in an efficient way. So the first panel discussion that I'm going to launch is on the ethical use of AI in outbound sales. This has come across as an interesting topic across the board, and Martin, you are going to lead this conversation by discussing ethical practices in cold calling with AI, and you got 6 minutes to do this. Let's run that.
Perfect. And I think it's a good question, and it's a wide question with many aspects in it. When we're talking about coming in, I'm coming from the call center industry myself, have been having call centers with more than 300 people, doing that job. So there is many things in the ethical part. There's both a part about what impact it will have to be replacing some part of the industry with robots, as coming from that with the human aspects of it. But first of all, there's also a big responsibility with companies like us and people in general working with AI, especially with the way we are doing it, to see what kind of input you give to the AI. We are talking a lot about bias versus non-bias, talking about what kind of approach the AI bot could be possible to take in going in different kind of direction. We're talking about, if it's going to be some of the biggest questions actually that we talk about is will a robot become racism? Will it be upfront doing things, going different direction that is not suitable for the conversation based on all the data and knowledge that it has? So we're working a lot about that. Is not beginning to take decision, goes in different direction based on age, ethnical group, sexual appearance. So this is some of the things that we work a lot with in that part, is how do you control the dialogue in a way that you want to be presented and that is not going out of different kind of direction based on the data and knowledge that it has. So that's a big thing for us, that's not becoming going in ways that we don't want it to go, and control that and narrative. And I think some of the things that we are working with internally is, of course, to do ground rules around the area and ethic policy of how do we want it to perform and what direction do we want it to go in. To start it up with some ethical issues or things that we should be aware of and go deep down into. Shane.
Awesome. So Chris, as somebody who does or who's got the 30,000-foot pilot view of Connect and Sell, 4 million hours or 4 million what is it? 4 million hours of conversation?
We connected about 4.5 million conversations last year.
Okay, so 4.5 million conversations. You probably have a great idea of the ups and downs, the peaks and troughs of cold calling and look, the use of AI in outbound. So why don't you chime in on your opinion, how we ethically use AI in AI based on your experience?
Sure. Well, I think the essence of ethics always comes down to the answer to this question, which is when you're asked a question, do you tell the truth? And it's generally unethical not to, especially when you lie in order to gain advantage. The first conversation ever held between two creatures was one of them saying to the other, "Don't eat me, I'm poisonous," and it was a lie. So, we started out with communication for the purpose of deception, for the purpose of survival, and we're all still pretty good at it. So, you got to look at the situation from an ethical perspective, starting with the most foundational thing, which is when you're asked, do you tell the truth? So let's go with the simplest use of a bot. The bot's job is to get a transfer. So we have 291 human agents who do this job today. So say I replace those with bots. And now, somebody asks the bot, my late wife, who used to be an EA, would have defended her CEO by saying, "So who are you?" That's a good question. What does the bot say? That's the essence of the ethical problem with bots. A regular human being can say, even if they're not fully transparent, they could say, "Oh, I'm Tony. I work with Chris at Connect and Sell, and Chris asked me to get Shane on the phone and transfer when he answers." Okay, that's truthful.
Yeah.
If the bot says to the answer, "Well, are you a bot?" "No, I'm not. I'm a human being. I'm Tony." It's like, that's unethical. The line is actually a relatively bright line in ethics. It has to do with, do you tell the truth about when asked? Now, you're not obliged ethically in business to come out and expose every conceivable truth. First of all, there's not enough time. Secondly, it would be stupid. So there is a certain amount of buyer beware or, trust but verify that goes on, which is basically how businesses run, and we all know that. But when the bot lies, you got a problem.
Ewing, you're on mute, buddy.
Hey, there we go. I would just jump on top of that and say that this is going to expose all the white lies that the humans are telling, because the bots are programmed to act on behalf of somebody that trained them. So I onboarded a new solution last week for my business. I was told it had an API in the sales process, and it does. It has one endpoint. Well, so it's useless.
Let me
It's
guess.
completely useless, completely not true that it has an API, but I didn't define the question better, and they didn't take the time to clarify. I would imagine you wouldn't build an API that basically can't be used, but they did. And now the answer to the question in sales process is yes, told by a human, and defendable because it is a fact, but it's useless. So this whole conversation is going to expose, when AI does these things on our behalf, all the white lies we've been telling each other, especially in sales and marketing.
Marianne, what's your opinion on that?
You know, it's really a multi-dimensional question because you've got the technology piece of it and ethical use of the tech and the information that it's working with. And then you have the actual interaction piece of it and what is ethical about that. And I think, you know, there's a lot of things that you can get tech to do. You know, is it predictable now that you have a predictable response so that you know it's always going to do the right thing? So, you know, that's not there yet. And then depending on, you know, like we do a ton of cold calling, ton of outbound, and you know, I use AI powered dialers. I wouldn't want AI interacting with prospects. And then the other thing to think about is, you know, a lot of the people, like there's this tech community that's really, you know, we're on it, we're tight, we know all the different tools, we're exploring stuff. The people that we're reaching out to are not necessarily technically fluent. So they're going to be totally opposed to interacting with an AI. They still want to talk to people. You're talking to the VP of manufacturing in a Midwest company, and if they find out they're interacting with a bot, they're just going to hang up. So, you know, there's going to have to be some development in that area on both ends so that you're addressing your larger populations that you're going to be reaching out to.
What do you think, Peter, and then Martin?
I think just following up on the conversation about does it have to tell the truth? And Jürgen said, you know, people lie, and where does the bot actually learn from? It learned from all the existing calls, all the data we have. So if people lie, we will learn it, you know, to lie, which is why we took a different approach as Mega, where we said, okay, so let's quality monitoring all data beforehand, before we upload it into our LM. So we kind of clean up all the data. So we actually can tell the bot this was a lie, and it knows not to go that direction. So I really think this is a critical thing, because obviously we cannot have bots calling all each other, which is just lying outright, right? It doesn't work. And I think another thing we need to think about when talking about cold calling is, does it have to present itself as a bot? Or can we actually just go ahead and say we will have a normal conversation? One of my friends the other day actually received a bot call trying to sell him something, and it didn't say it was a bot, but he was kind of, this is just, the lag is too long, so this is definitely a bot. But it didn't present itself, and I think from an ethical standpoint, it should actually. So it should say I'm a bot, which is like Chris said, it doesn't have a name. It is just like, I'm calling from Microsoft and I'm an AI, you know.
Awesome.
But it's up to discussion, and I would love to hear your views on it.
Let's go with Martin and then Tony.
Thanks, Shane. And so you know, we built already a lot of, you know, digital assistants, for instance, for our clients to, let's say, do a demos of a product, okay? And they are bots already, right? And you know, believe me, every client gives a name, okay, to that digital assistant. So you have Sarah, Tony, whatever,
Yeah.
you know, they have a names. Now, obviously, you want them to be knowledgeable, and you know, I think hallucination is a big issue within you know, today's models. But I think you know, there's an opportunity for those bots, you know, not just to be a very like a generic, you know, cold caller as we think, but think of it, you know, with an AI and with access to very large amounts of data and maybe buying signals and all of that. Actually, you know, you will be able to create something that is impossible today, because today every person, when they do outbound calling, they call with the same script, the same approach, etc., etc. Actually, technology and AI lets you to create a very personalized call okay, that will call, let's say, John, CEO at, a specific company, that they found that the John said something about their issue, about, specific area, and they can call and say, hey, John, actually, I found, we found you're talking about this issue, is this something you would like to discuss with us? So think of it, it doesn't have to call, hey, John, or I have you here as a John at, X, what's the weather there? No, I think the technology will actually allows us to be like very super targeted with with our audience, and have very personalized, always different conversation with on every call.
Tony, what's your experience and insights on this?
Yeah, I see Martin's hands up. I don't know if I can go after him.
Don't worry, we'll come to Martin later. He gets enough chat time.
Okay, cool deal. Well, listen, I want to take a little spin on it. I like what Chris said a little bit earlier about asking the question, are you telling the truth? And then Marcin was just talking a little bit about, for me, what are you even saying when you're on the call, right? Are you identifying a problem? Did you hear something on social, whatever it may be? And I think we're at the point right now with, if we think about ethics as, you tell you the truth, is people wanting to use AI, but maybe not telling themselves the truth about what they should be using it for in the first place. Like, are you equipped to use it? Are you using basic sales structures? Like, you mentioned you had this challenge and that's why I'm reaching out to you. If not, you can't really use AI no matter how awesome a tool it is. The idea is that AI, I like the definition of augmented intelligence rather than artificial intelligence, because the fact of the matter is, when so intelligent people are using it or not using it intelligently, it's not going to produce intelligent results. So first and foremost, I think on the ethical standpoint, it's kind of to get familiar with the tool. Don't forget the basic fundamentals, and then see if you can use the tool to implement those fundamentals at a higher volume than you would be able to individually, or with humans at a lower cost than you would be with humans. Things of that nature could at least improve the experience. Because for me, a cold call is a cold call. I mean, you're interrupting my day either way you slice it. Whether you do it with a robot or a person, it doesn't feel that much better to me. So it's really going to be about how you actually execute.
Eric, what's your opinion on that? Based on insights and experiences.
I agree. I think, first of all, I like the grounding of this discussion in the fundamental question of, are you telling the truth? I think that's a really good grounding for the more philosophical question of what is ethical in sales. So thank you, Chris. I think you really brought us to that grounding. I also think that Tony made a really good point here, which is that whether something has an ethically good or bad effect or not is going to depend a lot on how the people use the tech. So the tech can be, it's like a hammer. I mean, you can do very good things with a hammer and very bad things with a hammer ethically. And I think that AI is like that. You put it in the hands of an ethical person, they will do ethical things. You put it in the hands of a less ethical person, the effect will be much less ethical.
Wow, Martin, did you want to chime in on the last bit of that discussion before we move on to the next point?
Yeah, I would just like to catch up some of the things that comes out here. Is also, as you said, also Marcin, the know-how that it's getting, it will be a better agent. It will go into discussion with the clients, based on what it had read and seen. I had a long discussion the other day about this, and the answer for the person I discussed was yeah, and that's what now when it's moving over to manipulate now. With all that knowledge, it would be even better to bring manipulation into the picture. So I just want to hear also maybe some thoughts about, that topic. The more knowledge, the more specified can go, that it will come down to that it would be actually better for manipulation also. I think that's a big point. What are you thinking about that? Is that the same?
Well, let's do this, because that's an interesting topic. And remember, we have a part 2 of this roundtable. So without going too much off track, we want to stay on the same road as each other. Okay, so let's move on to topic 2. And that is, again, we can have a Q&A at the end of the call. But in terms of topic 2, customer data privacy. Okay, Peter's going to be addressing the ethical considerations in handling of customer data. And just the easiest way to do it, Peter, let's hear your thoughts on that. I think you're on mute.
You're right. Thank you. So I think I think there's a worldwide, concern about how companies handle customer data. And I know that in EU, where we are part of, they just implemented this EU AI Act, where they kind of do a lot of regulation, where they talk about data protection, but also consent. There needs to be consent how we handle data, algorithm transparency, which is a big thing, because how do we do that with AI? And we have all this data portability, accountability, etc. So there's a lot of considerations where we as a company need to be a part of, or we need to be regulated by it, or we are regulated by it by being a part of EU. And I think we will see the same going. I know we will come to compliance later, but I think we will see the same thing happen all over the world, that now the legislation come in place, and it kind of says how to handle, customer data.
Awesome. So with this particular topic, just do a hand raise and you guys can all chime in. Now it's a bit of a free for all. So you guys actually go head to head on discussion points that you agree with or you disagree with. Ewing?
All right. We got to be real careful here. So the more we regulate data, the more we give an advantage to those that have a alternative path. LinkedIn's a great example. I don't have to have Chris's data to communicate with him on LinkedIn. But if I'm forced to have some kind of nightmare of a compliance method of getting his email address to send him an email, guess what? LinkedIn's even more valuable and even more differentiated and has more of a moat and more of a alternative highway. And now we all have to pay to play over there, and you're going to have a handful of companies owning all the communication. That's the danger of, and also it will crush small businesses. I was at IBM when GDPR went into effect on May 21st, 2018. We refactored all of our products because we were in the EU, and that was where the mandate started. And if you look at EU GDP and what happened after that, when you literally aren't allowed to call a business anymore, let alone a consumer, it creates a massive disadvantage. So there's a real big elephant in the room around all of this regulation around data. It's been going on digitally for 30 years. We gave an advantage to 5 powerhouses, and now they're trillion-dollar companies, and it's unbelievably hard to compete in some domains because they just put a cookie policy out there that nobody reads, and you hit yes, and there's this other rules system over there. So we got to be careful about passing strict rule systems down on small businesses that basically make them unable to compete.
Chris, what do you think?
Yeah, Ewing, you've nailed it. I mean, it's the asymmetries that make business work, right? If everything were symmetric with regard to what we all do, what we all know, what we're all capable of, and what we're all willing to invest our money in, there would be no business. So it's the asymmetries that make it all go down. The EU has chosen to go in one direction with regard to privacy. They will learn that data is not like water, it's like liquid helium. It goes wherever it wants to go. And the idea that somebody's going to control the bits is a ridiculous idea. However, regulators can punish those who use the bits that they have access to in ways that are more symmetric with the big guys who have all the bits in the first place. So this asymmetry is a big deal. The other asymmetry is geopolitical. I guarantee you, Texas ain't going to become the EU anytime soon. So if there's economic advantage to businesses in Texas to run with a lighter regulatory touch, as you just saw today, probably Elon Musk had the people out there on X. I don't know how you name anything X and expect people to talk about it, but what the hell? He had the big vote go on. Should we move our corporate home to Texas? And the answer was a resounding yes. Now, why would the folks on X, who kind of act like shareholders in addition to being members and participants, why would they say that? Well, because they think there's more money to be made in Texas under their rules than there is in California. I moved, by the way, from California to Nevada because I could take one step, 1 foot over one line very, very carefully with a lot of legal advice. And suddenly my tax burden on the potential sale of Connect and Sell goes down by millions of dollars. Why do you think I did that? Because I'd rather have the millions of dollars. I mean, life is a little simpler than we're making here. You know, the data and the money will tend to flow toward each other, and they will tend to flow toward where there's less regulation. And that's a fact. And there's always going to be differences.
Yeah.
Tony Marson, Marianne.
Yeah, I would say, so, you know, thing that throws me off is for me, once again, like our conversation about ethics in the other category is this is still just ends up being, you know, are you using AI to amplify stuff that you're doing that you already shouldn't be doing with data? I think if we position the conversation even around customer experience, that we get, it's a little bit more poignant, and it's really saying, can't remember who just said it, but the deal is I got my data floating around everywhere. Sometimes I like you to have my data because it makes my life easier. The times that I don't want you to have my data is when I feel like you're attacking me, you're making my life cumbersome, you're interrupting my flow of work, whatever it may be. So the deal is, yeah, I mean, it's a very thin line as to what ethics and what's not, and what's beneficial and what's not in the area of handling customer data. But again, I'd say probably the thing that's the redeeming quality is what kind of experience are you creating for the person that's on the other side of that data, and they'll let you know whether you violated their ethics or not.
Marianne.
Yeah, I think there's a, you know, we were talking about ethical people will manage their use of AI ethically, but there's the app and the tool and what you're using as a business, but then there's where your data lives. And so unless you are hosting it yourself, you're going to be working with some third party that's going to have the data. And, you know, how many of us get emails and letters all the time? It's like, your data was part of a breach, you know? And so there's going to be things like that to consider. And there's going to have to be some kind of standards that you evaluate these providers for, because, you know, they could have a very porous environment and you don't even know it. So I think that's going to be another area to address, is all these, you know, all the hosting providers and cloud services and all that.
Tony?
I'm probably, I mean, some people are going to like this that are out there watching, but hey, it is what it is. Please do not use AI to send me any messages on LinkedIn. Not on there to receive your random message. I set up your connection, it sends me something and starts talking about some stuff. It doesn't know me. You don't know how many messages I've received where it's like, hey, I'm really excited to talk to you about your the things you've been doing in the real estate industry. I'm not in real estate, you know, so there's this piece too, right? Like the augmented intelligence could be doing unintelligent things. Ideally for me, use it to like get more productivity on your task, right? If you have it connect with me, cool, and I'm in your bucket of folks that might be a prospect, great. But I'll tell you this, me for 2024, here's my New Year's resolution. I'm not using LinkedIn automation tools. I'm not using them, not to do messaging, because there was a time when I knew everybody that was in my social networks. And the power of that is I could go ahead and maybe have a real conversation with them. I could network with them. Social networks is networking. We build a relationship and opportunities come up. That may be an opportunity for us to close some business together, whether it be side by side or to buy directly from me. Cool. But now it's just gotten really crazy. So I don't feel ethical. My experience sucks when people are using the AI for me through LinkedIn. But there are ways you could use it that would not make me feel so put off. So I'm gonna throw that out there for anybody
just responding on Tony, and you're right. I think it's also about, again, what experience is it that you are giving, you know, the prospect that you are contacting. And of course, when I have the same feeling as you, like mass robots messages in my LinkedIn, you know, and I'm using that channel for other things. That's like another prospect part for me, you know, and the connections that I want with people with real conversations here. So I think a lot, again, it's all about what experience are we using it with. And now we are seeing all these mass sent out of emails and, you know, LinkedIn messages and robocalls and bad qualities, etc., going a little bit up with AI. But what experience is it that we want to create with the people we are talking with? You know, that comes down to every part of it also. So I understand where you are coming from. The baddest way to start a conversation is coming.
So what I'll do is I want to supercharge the next piece of the chat, and we'll hand it over to Chris, because there's a bit of a crossover in this. And then Eric, I'd love to hear your opinion on it, and you could chime in on this piece too. But opt-in leads and AI. Now, Chris, if you can, exploring the ethical use of AI with opt-in leads, what do you want to chime in on that piece right there?
Well, I mean, somebody opts in to be spoken with, you should call them and talk to them and don't waste their time. I mean, that really, it's multidimensional, like Marianne said. It's like, what are you really intending to do? Then what are you actually doing? And then how does the person feel about it? These are all not strictly ethical considerations. Some of them are just kind of practical. But when you come right down to it, I'll go away from opt-in for just a moment. There's an issue with AI, but it's just an issue with automation in general. It's like Gresham's law. So Gresham's law of money says bad money drives out good. This is why, you know, Isaac Newton was made put in charge of the bank in you know, and money in England at one point, was to make sure the money was pure, because when bad money comes on the scene, good money goes under the bad, right? And you want the good money in circulation. It's the same problem. AI is just another way of counterfeiting for most folks in sales. They counterfeit their sincere interest in you. After all, in sales and B2B sales, we're trying to get somebody to trust us more than they trust themselves. That's at the essence of B2B. People buy from people they trust to make a decision they don't trust themselves to make, because the other person's an expert and they aren't. So in B2B, we have to become a trusted expert. That means the other person sees us as being on their side. The problem with automation in general, it lets us counterfeit the interactions that are supposed to generate that trust. And it's a shortcut that we use, whether it's blasting out emails, which was very popular for a while, and it's now becoming less popular because all our inboxes are filled. Now our LinkedIn messages look just like our inboxes. At some point, you have to find a constraint of nature. And the constraint of nature in the old world of money, the constraint of nature was the production of gold. There was only so much of it you could make, gather together, and so forth. In the world of B2B, the constraint of nature is time. And so if you have to spend your time to get somebody else's time, they're more likely to trust you from end to end in the transaction. If you aren't using your time, you're counterfeiting your time. At some point, that will be discovered unless you're lying. And if you're lying, it'll still be discovered before the end of the transaction. So you've got, you know, the real ethical issue is really a practical issue, which is, how do you get somebody to trust you from now through the point where they bet their career on you, if you start out by lying to them because it was more cheap and convenient for you?
What about you, Eric? What's your opinion on that?
Yeah, I agree with what Chris said. I like how he framed it. And I particularly like the analogy of counterfeiting your authentic interest in the buyer. So even on first touch, so let's say you get, 10,000 people opt in. How you touch those 10,000 people for the first time, there is still an element of authentic versus counterfeit in that. So even though all of us are very accepting of the fact that people are going to use tech to do that first touch, the buyer individually, I think most B2B buyers especially have a sense for whether they're dealing with counterfeit or real, interaction. And so I'm not sure that it falls into necessarily the bucket of ethics. It certainly falls into the bucket of what's going to be good for your business or not. The other thing that I think is interesting to consider, and I know this is a related tangent, it's not exactly about, what do you do with opt-in leads, but there is also the question of how would you feel if a company used the data that it has about your business? Let's say, Salesforce, by the way, has specifically said it's not going to do this, but just to use as an example of one that we all understand, what if Salesforce started using your Salesforce data to train its own AI products? Is that okay with you that it does that? And what if they made a promise, oh, don't worry, no one will ever see your actual data except us. and we're just going to use it to train our products, and no other company will ever see specifics about your data. First of all, do you trust them to even keep that promise? And secondly, do you feel okay about your business's data being trained to make an economic asset that Salesforce will benefit from and not pay you for?
Wow. All right. So, Tony, we'll dovetail into the next topic and you can lead that, which is going to be compliance and legal aspects. And we'll do it like this because Ewing, I just saw you jump out of it. So, Tony and then Ewing, go for it. You're on mute, Tony. Tony, you're on mute.
Yeah, Eric just dropped the bomb right there. I thought we could go down that. I will go another way. I guess we could kind of. Then I could respond to that and loop in the legal aspects, though, right? Because of the fact that what Eric said is now Salesforce gets to use my information in some ways that creates commercial value for them. And how would I feel about that? For me personally, I would say that in that scenario, I'm assuming that I'm a Salesforce user, right? So I use Salesforce. I'm supposed to be getting economic value out of Salesforce. I'm also hoping that they give me better pricing and everything like that. I'm going to say, as a capitalist, have fun, do your thing. Because the deal is, on the other side, we're all looking for those opportunities to create more value, and ideally from things we're doing day to day, right? That allows us an opportunity to increase margins. So I actually need that advantage for myself as well. Do I have the pockets that Salesforce has right now? No. So they could obviously do it at a bigger level. But I do come from the school of, instead of looking out there and being like, man, they're doing that, it's very smart, it sounds very advantageous. Instead of looking at it as I'm a victim because it's happening to me, I look at it as, oh, how can I replicate that play? Once again, assuming that I'm creating a good experience for the person on the receiving end of whatever I'm doing, or creating mutually beneficial mutual value on both sides, so that I feel good about the fact that if I create value, I have the right to extract value. If I'm not creating value, then you can come after me.
And by the way, Salesforce in particular has said they are not using your data to do this. So just
maybe we'll never know.
Ewing, what do you think? You're on mute.
The penalty. So I'll tell you a little story about life. The penalty for compliance is death. And when I was at IBM, Georgia Tech used Watson in 2017 to have a student ambassador named Sarah. There were 13 student ambassadors rated by the students all year long in surveys. Sarah came out on top. Here's the things they said about Sarah. She's always awake. She never takes a day off. She gets me the answer the fastest. I love Sarah. I prefer to work with Sarah. All Sarah was a chat. Okay. Now, IBM, I was there. I joined in 2018. They on the scale of ethics, they're writing the book on how to be the most compliant, the most fair, the best, most everything you can do to be safe and first to adopt GDPR from big tech. And meanwhile, Google and Meta are just paying fines and running everything the same way. Okay. So what does death look like? Well, death looks like the reason we're having this conversation, because all these other technologies are now way more advanced and have come and played unfair around the edges. Who knows? But in the history of the world, the conservative compliance approach in these breakthrough revolutions almost never works out. And so, I feel like we're having this discussion about this moment in time, and there's really kind of no stopping it. They took that approach. They had leading technology, and now people have come behind, and I don't know that we're ever going to really wrangle this in, and there's just a sort of a reality. So counterpoint a little bit, but they took that approach, and now look where they're at.
I want to meet Sarah, and then Chris, you tell us your part. Chris?
Oh, I see. Sorry. I don't know who I am, ethically or otherwise. I thought you were asking if I was a bot. I didn't know how to answer. What am I going to say? So I think you've nailed it. The fact is, in business, everybody is ultimately advances because companies and individuals within companies explore the efficient frontier of getting stuff done. And getting stuff done rarely is congruent with talking about not doing stuff because you're afraid if you do it that way, it might not be perfect. And this is not just an, this is about everything. This is about everything. You write big project plans, you will be wiped out by somebody who just starts doing things. It's no different from that. And that's just the math of business. The innovation economy is driven forward by folks operating at the frontier, doing things that other people didn't think should be done or can be done. There's a company called, I think it's called Google. They're not represented on this. And a senior person from Google once explained to me kind of how they run their business. It works like this. They know who your most direct competitor is. For half a year, you get those cool words, and then they go sell them to the other guy. Now, whose information are they using when they do that? Everybody's, right? But it's been going on for a long time. Last I checked, they're worth a lot of money, and they can afford to pay those fines that Ewing was talking about. So this sort of freaking out about data and AI and even the ethics of AI is sort of odd in the sense that the stuff that doesn't work is self-correcting. The stuff that hurts reputations is self-correcting. And none of this stuff is going to do fast societal harm. It doesn't, there's too much variety in the innovation economy for any one thing, even one of these big companies, to take over and run the show. It just doesn't happen.
Peter, I'll let you chime in on the next piece. And if you want to answer that, do that. But the next piece will be on short, mid, and long-term ethical solutions to these issues. So if you want to finish on Chris's point and then dovetail into that, that'd be great.
Actually, I just want to give my remarks to compliance and legal aspects, because we talked a lot about, I think Chris mentioned it first, if you kind of restrict the company, they just move. And I think we are a good example of this because we're based, actually, as people, we're based in EU, but because they did this EU act, we kind of incorporated the company in US. Not Texas, Chris, but still in the US. And then there was another angle, because Chris, you said you kind of have full inboxes and you will also now have full LinkedIn. And I think that legislation will come in terms of, right now it's kind of fun to play with an AI when it calls to you, but in 5 years, when everybody is using it and you get a lot of bot calls, will it then be as fun? So I think there will come legislation on this, and we are at Maker, we're trying to map out US, UK, EU, and how they all how would the legislation look like in the next 3 to 5 years. Yeah.
And what do you think the short, mid-term, and long-term ethical solutions will be to that 5 years down the line?
It's a really good question. I think what we're working with a code of ethics, because as Martin said to me, every American he talks to, they say they really like to talk to a bot. Yeah. Every Scandinavians we talk to, they don't. They think it's super unethical. So also from a geographical, there's just like this huge spread on how the perception is. So I think from a solution standpoint, what is the solution? I think obviously there will be legislation, but I think every company needs to look in and say what is our code of ethics, and I think they need to be very open about it.
Martin and then Tony.
Thanks. And, I just think, the legislations will come, but let's remember that AI is global. So, legislations are coming in specific countries. And then, with AI, it's like another dimension for internet. So you can make calls for any country to any country. And so I think the legislations will come, but technology will come with a help as well, because, you will have something like CAPTCHA for the call, right? To like click specific boxes or whatever you'll have to do, but just to confirm maybe initially at least that you're not the robots. But I think ethically or on ethical sides and the data and everything we're talking about, like it is coming anyway, right? And it might not be coming, as wide as we all think that, hey, bot will just call everybody, in every kind of way and possible, and you will like replace all the jobs. No, but it will definitely come, I think, and people, people will create the value of it, and the reality, most of people on the other side of the line will even not know that this is a bot. They will not know, I guarantee you, because we're talking now here, okay, there's like 10 of us here, kind of execs, in technologies and all of that. But I can tell you, if a bot is gonna call a lady that is, I don't know, like 80 years old, and they will say, hey, I'm calling from HSBC Bank, etc. And I think this is really the ethics that we should be looking at, like how to make sure that we actually avoid scams at scale, because I think that's going to be the biggest problem.
Tony, and then Marianne and Chris.
Yeah, I think in line with creating solutions, it seems that we're at a point where we really need to define what the ethical issue is in the first place, right? Like we started off in this call where Chris brought up the idea also of do you tell the truth when you get asked a question? The other part is around the customer experience, and then or the buyer experience and how it affects that aspect. Probably in order to have a healthy conversation and also create solutions, whether it be legislative or just behavioral, would be to clearly define what's considered ethical or unethical in the use of any of these things, regardless, probably first and foremost in sales, whether there's automation used or not, and then with automation, because otherwise we're kind of just, shooting in the dark. There's a lot of opinions, but where are we going? We're not solving anything because we don't have a clear definition of the problem.
Marianne?
Yeah, and something to think about is AI isn't new. The awareness of it is new. So when ChatGPT came out, everybody's like, right? And so then they're all implementing it. Then you see all these like Chrome add-ons and all this stuff. And so, everybody kind of jumped in, and then it became a very hot topic. Like, it's funny, some of the companies that we call, they say, oh yeah, everybody in the department is obsessed on AI. But it's been around for a while. I have clients that have very mature AI environments, and that's part of their offer. So I think the thing, and to Tony's point about getting all this junk, I love when I get emails that are AI generated, and it's like, oh, Marianne, I want to congratulate you on your accomplishment, and it mentions something like 5 years ago, right? And I'm like, yeah, good job on that, right? And so there's that kind of thing that happens all the time. And so I think it's still in this phase of, I look at certain technologies that are coming out, and in the beginning there's kind of this confusion about it, and then I remember like a few years back people were calling things AI, and it was just data scraper stuff. It's like, that's not AI. So I think what owners and leaders and executives need to think about is, is this tech going to be around? So if they're going to invest in, and not AI as a tech, but this company. So somebody comes to them and says, hey, we've got this thing. And, there's still a measure of, letting the dust settle, and also making sure that you're choosing the right thing that has an end-to-end, that it checks all the boxes from, a security standpoint, for an experiential standpoint for your prospects, and for long-term use of it. So I do think that, it's still kind of TBD, but I do think some of this, junky outreach stuff, I don't see that as like a long-term thing, because it's very irritating.
Awesome. Chris, and then Martin, and then we'll wrap up the last 10 minutes with an open discussion.
Sure. Well, I can say, at least in cold calling, personalization is bullshit and is counterproductive. So you shouldn't do it, because you're dealing with a fact, and the fact is you are the problem, and you have to offer a solution to the problem. So that's kind of, the FBI figured this out a long time ago in hostage negotiation. We're wise to listen to them when it comes to cold calling. You have 7 seconds to get trust. You have to be ethical to do that. And you have to know what the problem is. You are the problem. You are still the problem. The fact that you think that you know something about somebody, what their dog's name is, or whether they're can't eat grapefruit because they take statins or whatever is not going to help you. You are the problem. You got to offer a solution to the problem. So secondly, scams at scale are already going on. They've been going on for a long time. I give our society a good 2,500 years of scams at scale that have been recorded. Every technology is first used to scam. Every communication is first used to deceive. This is the nature of communication. So it's because there's huge leverage in scamming. So, you know, the defense against scamming is never legislation. Nobody's ever been able to legislate scamming out of the economy. You can counter it with more information, with defensive measures, right? Say my phone always answered as a bot. That'd be my bot. You got to get by my bot before you get to me. Telling me bullshit about my dog, who, by the way, died in 2002, ain't going to get it done. So the technology will protect us from the technology, but the legislation will not.
Martin?
I think it's very interesting to hear about also the different culture aspects of how it's working. To go back from you, Peter, when I asked the Scandinavian people, they simply just hate that thought, you know, and then it's different from where most of you guys are coming from. I think there's another aspect also, you know, when we go to market with this, what is that our client will demand of us as a company working with AI. I think what we are seeing in Scandinavian, you have success if you are following different regulations, rules, like always have a mark of that you have an ethical ground rule set that you are applying. I think it will be demanding from a lot of clients, especially from our side of the country, you know, just Scandinavian especially, but in Europe, but we are like the GDPR and the ethical room is another thing in Scandinavian. So I think that it will be a demand for clients that you as a company have some rules and have taken some decisions of what direction you want to go. I think it's super important. And it's really funny to again see the cultural differences between countries. What do we expect and out of solutions like this, and also the experience that we get from these kind of products. Yeah.
Eric, you chime in on that last piece, and then Ewing, if you want to wrap it up with Peter on summarizing the ethical takeaways and what your thoughts are on the end of the discussion, that'd be great. Eric? Most
salespeople are not trying to scam you. Most salespeople are at least trying to help you. Some of them are really good at it. Some of them are not. So the whole scam thing, I think, is like a side conversation. If you're talking about using AI to automate things like cold calling, I personally don't think there's a very high ethical impact. I think there's a high potential annoyance impact, but I don't know whether it's unethical. It's unethical when you start to tell untruths. But, you know, if you just get 100 offers of something that you're only vaguely interested in, I don't know if that's an ethical breach. I think that where the power of AI does have a potential to touch ethical questions is when you use it to do much more clever things than impersonate an SDR. So, for example, the Technical University of Denmark just used it to predict the date of your death. And it's pretty damn good at doing it. They used the same mathematics that are used in transformer-based LLMs, and they used a bunch of daily data that you apparently collect in Denmark. And they basically said, now that we can see the sequence of events in your life, we can tell you when you're going to die, down to the day. So that's the fact that that model was even vaguely accurate is pretty amazing. And it says something about the amount of data you collect on people in Denmark too, which is another thing. So that's the type of power that AI has. And that does start to have a potential to touch ethical questions. I don't think that impersonating an SDR has a very high ethical component either way. Like I said, it has an annoyance component potentially.
Ewing, how would you summarize? I'll have to say this. We're at 3 minutes too, as much as we've got a lot of conversations to go. There's more roundtables, but Ewing, I'll hand it over to you to wrap it up, and then Peter, you can close it out.
If none of us were allowed to buy email addresses or phone numbers, most of us would go out of business this year. Advertising on TV, we put up with as a society. If you shut down advertising, the whole world shuts down. Now we're talking about the next rung of the ladder, which is the delivery. I don't write any emails myself, and I use LinkedIn automation, and I do it in a way that doesn't bother people. And there's founders out there that desperately want that because they can't figure out how to do it, because I got Sarah, or I built my own Sarah, right? And you can all build your own Sarah. Now, if somebody releases a bot that can handle a conversation and book a meeting to a market segment that you weren't going to call anyway, because your human amount of power is not going to get there, and it doesn't piss people off, somebody's going to buy it. And if it gets shut down in the US, then somebody in China is going to invent the same thing and they're going to buy it from there. And this is the way it goes. So we're talking about, I agree wholeheartedly with Eric. There's an annoyance sometimes becomes the center of the conversation. And is really, you know, the students at Georgia Tech do not care that Sarah is a machine. They just want to know, where the hell's the library? What's the shortest path to get there? And if that's the best way to get that information delivered so that money and the university gets used more efficiently for their student life, at the end of the day, the whole thing's getting a little better, right? So I think just like putting photos on LinkedIn and recruiting conversations with corporate America in 2007, this too shall pass. You will hurt your own business by using robocallers. You'll annoy your customers. They'll think you are not good at business and they won't do business with you. But if you use it the right way, you're going to have a crazy, crazy good advantage. So I'm on the other side of the line of, I'm part of the team trying to make it useful, right? I sort of I had to make that choice for my career. I'm not going to be over here trying to defend and shut it down. I'm going to be on the side trying to enable the right use cases. And I think,
Peter,
you know, collectively, this group sounds like, you know, if I had to summarize the whole thing, it's, you know, ethics sometimes aren't enforceable in a way that's even fair for the world. So maybe not get too lost in that conversation, you know, as you think about your own business and others.
Peter, in 30 seconds, how would you close out this discussion?
I just want to say that I think Tony actually said it pretty well, because he said we don't have a clear definition of the problem. And I think that's really right. I also would like to say that it will be difficult to, you know, legislate yourself out of this problem, because data will flow. And obviously, I am, as Uring, as part of the enablement, we want to enable this. We want to use it because it will change the world for the better.
And I think that's a wrap, guys. Right on 5 o'clock on the dot. I really, really appreciate all you guys' times. If you guys have any other suggestions on topics moving forward, please do put them over. If you guys want to host your own, let me know. But thank you so much for joining today. And we have another one on the 22nd. Until next time, guys.
Thanks, Shane, for hosting.
Okay. Thank you so much.
Yeah, nice to see you all.
Okay.
See you.
Bye.
Thanks, everybody.
Peter and Martin, you want to stay on? Ewing? This is Ewing, by the way. He's top dog. He's top dog.
Clever words today. Good discussion today.
I'm very glad you joined, Ewing. I'm very glad
awesome,
you joined.
guys. Yeah, look,
awesome.
Keep me in mind for the next one, and you know, depending upon what you guys are up to, maybe we should connect. And who knows?
I just sent you a LinkedIn connection 10 minutes ago.
Yeah, for sure.
Awesome.
We speak soon again. Nice to have you
soon.
today. See you soon.
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah.
Nice balloons. He's really cool, that guy, Ewing.
Yeah.
He's really cool guy.
He's
really cool guy. So the next one, all right, so what I'm seeing is, and I need your guys' feedback, because remember, this isn't going to be perfect for me. I'm learning too. So wherever you guys say, like...
Shane, it's not perfect for us either. So we are learning together here.
We are all learning together.
And I just think again, the format is super cool. I think what we will benefit out of is that we, like tomorrow, and that's also been a request, that we try to plan each next one together. Yeah. And for my own, you know, I would love to have a week where I go and, you know, just think about it. So I'm you know, can be more prepared for my thoughts, etc. So we can do that together there every week and say, okay, what is it that we want to have on the agenda? What topics? How do we want to frame it? Then I think we're going to be even more sharp. But I think, again, this is a living discussion. I told you the other day, I was a part of a roundtable that I took for Peter. It was the worst experience in my life. This is like 2,000. So no, because there is a good discussion. There's a good form. There's good energy. And that's the best things. And then we can be more sharp and different things. But again, the connections is there between people. So I think we are on a really right path with it. I think
what would work really well is, I think, less topics and more discussion points. I think that would work really well. So we've got another one on the 22nd. It's halfway full already. And again, now it's just, I think we want to get a little bit more focused on the selection of people and who we bring, because as I release this one and people start to see Chris, Ewing, and the names that are coming on it, this is going to gain a lot of traction.
You and me talked about, and I think let's go further the next week or so or two. We are beginning for next phase to try to invent. So let's give it some thoughts, all of us, that very soon, I think we will have our environment ready, where we will have a weekly webinars, we will have weekly or bi-weekly roundtables, where you and me, our next part of the job is to find, as you said, the right people to get on board into that environment, where we will have roundtables and webinars and other stuff in, and have a more strict format for it, because now we try to invite people in to the journey of Mega, but still, I think we should have these outside what you're doing here in the other one.
Definitely,
and
I think
definitely.
So that's what I mentioned to you for Marcin from Miami. When we have that chat with him, I think that's what you speak to him about, unless we have somebody internally that can manage that. Bringing the people to those webinars, that's where I thought there was a bit of difficulty, which is why I just completely removed it for now. The difficulty is in inviting registrants to come and watch the discussion and then have Q&A. And I honestly believe having a couple of people come and watch it might not be as valuable as having 10 CEOs in the room. But again, it's up for discussion.
But I still think I talked with marketing guy today, and we had this with Lee Gadish here on Monday. He will send something tomorrow, I know. I think that there is a discussion to be taken up very soon. To say we have the podcast in your brand over here. We have the Mega environment waiting list, VIP list over here. We want to have the website up running. We want to have these different kind of bits of, not commercial, but that we can use on LinkedIn to attract people, etc. I talked with Nico that's doing these things today, to get some ideas. And what kind of traffic can we then, with maybe a guy like Lee, put on it? So automatically that could also count for viewers, of course, to the podcast that you're doing. Can we do some marketing? Can we try to extract people online to participate? I think that would be good.
Like I said, Martin, I said the way I look at it is just to make it easier, because if we have two brands, there's a small amount of confusion. Just put it all under one house. We're working together on the same goal. Just put it all under one house.
And I think it would be even more nice, and when we talk further tomorrow and the coming days about how the environment, both of them should work, what is the funnels to get them from, maybe also coming from the dream for me is, of course, when we have a roundtable like this, let's say we have 300-400 people looking. It's not impossible with a guy like Lee at all. Let's say those 300-400 people could be sourced from there down to the general wait list. So we have one wait list over here, and then we have the exclusive over here. It's no problem to have 100,000 on the general wait list, where there is some information together. It will make that buzz that we want. So I think it's a good investment in by time here to get traffic into these type with viewers, because then they will see the seriousness of it, of course, and drop them from there down to the waiting area.
What do you think, Peter?
I totally agree with Martin.
Awesome. Very easy conversation. I
Mm.
got the money today.
I love the conversation we have today.
Good.
I loved it also. It was even better. Really a lot better, a lot of cool people there again.
Yeah, I think so. I think so.
Cool.
Yeah.
And
Really,
this is the
really
second
cool
one.
People.
This is the second one. We're going to have hundreds of them.
Yeah.
So we are learning all the time. And I think when we do a frame, also a graphical, we talked a lot about seeing how we are, the target list. I want to talk with Lee about that also, the target list, the people that are participating here, people on the waiting list, etc. How can we also do, outreach, so they see Mega here, Mega there, all over the place with small bits, and saying, to create that summon and buzz before we are ready to do more with them.
The best way again is what I should be doing, as I'm scrambling to try to get most of it done. What I should be doing is, but I need a bit of help on it, is pre-promotion and post-promotion. Once we can get pre and post promotion for the actual roundtable itself, that can draw the audiences before the event and then after the event for the following event. Just based on just being completely open, transparent, and vulnerable. I don't know how to do that shit. I can learn it. But again, I'd rather focus my time on the delivery of and executing on things I can control than trying to learn something that dilutes my
It would
focus
be
on the
the
outcome.
same. It would be the same to ask me to begin to do, like, I think really we should have we have found our boxes now. We need also a graphical guy, the guy who's doing the website and all your marketing, to say there's a frame here. We delivering that. We make the content. We make the invitation look nice. We have all that. That this is the level we need to be on very soon. When you don't have a product ready for market yet, but you want to entertain people for 8 months with the story and bring them on board on the journey, so we can go from 10 to 1,000 clients in a week when we are ready. It will take that way, and I think you should be focusing on how to connect people into these different kind of activities, so we can grab them down to push them down, and then let's see what we can do with them down. Be creative, all of us. What can we do to entertain them best way possible over the next 8 months? Yeah.
Okay.
Great experience today.
Anything else?
No. Let's talk tomorrow on the meeting. We have a meeting in the morning.
We have the meeting in the morning.
All
Because
right,
we
cool.
have
But it was a
Paris
great
later.
experience today.
Yeah, it was really awesome.
I really enjoyed it. And this was, even though I thought I don't have so much to say to ethics, but when it comes to it, you kind of do. You do have an opinion on that, yeah?
Yeah. So Gabe, I mentioned to you, Gabe is really interested.
Yeah.
Did you guys speak to him yet or no? Not yet.
Not yet.
Gabe is gonna. So the preface of Gabe's conversation is he doesn't want to fire anybody from his team because he values them and he spent a lot of time building them up. And those are on his internal alley-oop team. Now he has a delivery team that obviously has to go across campaigns for hundreds of clients and hundreds of projects. If we can find the happy medium to say, this is how we support your SDRs with our robot to be better, he's sold.
I think there's a connect and sell part of it that, again, if you talked a little bit yesterday, there's a part of the robot that would be suitable for him to start with internally, with all our conversation of respect for the human input that he would love, of course, to take bits and bits of it. And I think you should start in another space with that guy, a little bit like with Chris Bale, where we are at with that. Before the client, will they start up? I talked with Troels, CTO, yesterday, and so can the client buy a part of the product to start with? Can they start with just passing by the gatekeeper? And the answer was yes. This is how it's going to be built over time, that you can have that little piece of it to say this is the first. And of course, imagine clients that are not ready. Hey, I have 200 people. I love them. I spend like blah, blah, all these really good arguments for not doing that. But when they then start with what they hate their people to do because they are skilled and they are trained, etc., they want them to talk to clients. They don't want them to prospect. They don't want to get to the gatekeeper. They want a bot to do that. So we get in with that first, that kind of a product, that part. And then, of course, a natural place would be, but test the full circle with 2 agents, 2 bots. And when you see that is not a problem, that it actually work better, that it's actually good, that it's actually efficient, then you have no problem as a CEO either, though you love your people to fire their asses after that anyway. So it's coming natural. So.
All right, cool. Well, look,
Okay.
I'm glad you guys liked it. Yeah. And
lovely.
I've got a few more. I've got Tony Hughes tonight, which is going to be a massive one. So he's got over 375,000 followers. He's wrote about 4 books. He's one of the most profound technologists in the industry. Yeah. So I'll meet him. I'll drop a dime on Mega, and then I'll get that intro over to you guys too.
Yeah. And if there were some people here that we haven't talked with before, I would love to get the same introduction.
Again, bro. So, all right. So what I did on this one is, hopefully, did it ask you guys to register?
Yeah.
You didn't, but I had to get into the meeting.
Yes, I had to also.
Okay, good. So now moving forward, because so what happened is I was on GSpace, I deleted that and moved over to MS, and it fucked up all my calendars. So that's why when I sent it, I'm sending it and it wasn't showing up in my calendar. And then Martin said, yo, every time I confirm, it's coming back as a block.
Yeah.
So I had to resend it again from yesterday. And I thought, okay, how do I capture the details? So now there's a registration for everybody to join, to get in. We get all those details. So the goal is by the end of this year, we'll have 240 CEOs just for us.
Oh,
We love it.
I love it.
But there was some cool people here. Let's just move
Yeah, I know,
on
Martin.
into
You
the-
finished now. I've heard you had a
Yeah.
great story, bro. I love you. I'll talk to you later. I'm going swimming.
See, talk tomorrow, right? Okay, bye.
So-